My name is Allison Glenn, and I graduated from the Art Institute in 2012 with a double master's degree in art history and arts administration. Well, a lot of the work that I've done is really interested in the materiality of the built environment and artists that use that material to conceive of work projects. So I'm naturally drawn to spaces that kind of exist a little bit off the cuff and spaces. So I'm interested in artists that use materiality of the built environment and spaces that kind of exist in this interstitial space. And the interstitial space is an architectural term that means the space in between floors in a building. And I kind of use that conceptually as a space that exists in between the institution and the environment or the community. So I've always been interested in projects that are able to bridge those two. And I think this does it quite seamlessly. So when I was at the Art Institute, I had the pleasure of working in the Office of Exhibition Practices with Michael Ryan, and he was very generous in letting all of us kind of learn as we practiced making exhibitions. And I ran the 18 South Wabash storefront exhibition space for a year, and I worked with MFA students to realize projects in that space. It's now a Carhartt store, so it's right there in Wabash. So I think we were successful, you know, within the larger mission of the project. But I also am very much interested, I guess this idea of interstitial space exists again for me in kind of the art histories I'm interested in. I'm very much interested in non-Western, non-canonized art histories, other art histories, post-colonial theory, you know, all of those really great French post-structuralists, and very contemporary art. I guess I've known Theaster for I knew him for about 5 years prior to working for him, and I met him at a gallery in Chelsea. I was working with the artist Hebrew Brantley, and he had a show at Lionswear Gallery in Chelsea. And both Theaster and Naomi Beckwith came to the opening, and I met both of them there, and was immediately like, wow, these people are amazing. I want to know who they are. I want to learn what they learned, and you know, so that was the first time I met him. And then I just, being in Chicago, just, you know, attending talks and lectures and things like that, public things. And I think a lot of the various faculty at the Art Institute were really influential in connecting students specifically with artists that worked in Chicago, and Theaster was one of those people. So I was a research fellow prior to this position, and I just did various research for Theaster. I manage the various programs that happen within the building. So, like I said, we have 3 programming arms. We have the Design Apprenticeship Program, which is the program that my colleague Norman Teague is spearheading with another colleague, Jay Love. And it's a skill building program for students that are in the local high schools. The other program is the Artist in Residency program, and we're in our 2nd year. This year we have 5 artists in residence: Leroy Bach, Colleen Smith, Tamika Reed, Avery R. Young, and Cecil McDonald Jr. And I manage the residency, so that just means kind of providing support for the artists when they need it. And the 3rd programming arm is our public programs. And underneath that umbrella, we have the talks, performances, exhibitions, visiting artists, things like that. So I manage those programs, and also I've been able to wiggle in a bit of a curatorial voice, which is really great. So the mission of the building, Theaster's mission for this, is to support Chicago-based artists. So exhibitions of Chicago-based artists. Well, I think first off, collaboration can't be forced. So it's very important to enter a collaboration willfully. It means patience, a lot of give and take and reflection. And I'm the type of person I really like to get things done. So I'm the type of person that likes to move forward, and whenever I collaborate, I have to remind myself to take a step back and remain open to another person's point of view and perspective, because it's always going to be enlightening and different for me. There's so many different entities that work within the space and also worked to make this space happen, and I've had the privilege of entering into this larger project that already was happening, years before I was here. And I think in the space between the administrators, my colleague Dara Epison in the Office of Civic Engagement, my colleagues that are running the DAP initiative, the 2 associate directors, the Astor, the artists in residence, it's just happening. It's not something that is scripted or kind of choreographed, but it's happening, and it would happen regardless of whether or not that was the intent, because you have so many different, very intelligent people operating out of one central hub. It's definitely important. So I'll answer the last part of that question first. I think that SAIC is a wonderful institution, and I think that not many people get that opportunity, but it's really important to reach outside and realize that as wonderful as it is, it's also very insular, and there's a lot that exists outside of that 4 square radius, but also the conceptual kind of boundaries of the school. But I think it's important. I think that SAIC teaches has a specific pedagogy, and one that worked really well for me. So this interdisciplinary practice is something that, even though I wasn't in the MFA program or in a studio-based program at the school, it still felt like the idea of collaboration in that sense extended. So I think that it is really important to get outside of the confines of the studio, outside of the confines of the student body, outside of Chicago, outside of the United States, North America. Go. Well, I've been in Chicago for 6 years now, so I feel like I've been here for quite some time, and it seems like much more of a community. I worked for a bit in Los Angeles at the Hammer Museum, and I had a taste of that community, and I've also done some work in New York, and they're all very different, but I think in Chicago, what makes it unique is that everyone knows everyone, and for a majority of people know everyone, and it's definitely much more of a community. There's a lot of experimentation that happens here that I think you couldn't get away with in other cities. And there's very interesting funding strategies here. I think Three Walls, Abby Satinsky specifically, is doing some pretty amazing things with finding different ways to, create funding for artists or space for artists. So, it's apartment gallery scene. So yeah, experimental in terms of space, also in terms of approaching making work, working together, and I think once the idea of or once the commodity system is pushed aside, which is what I think happens in Chicago, you're given much more space to experiment. And so when the end goal isn't necessarily to make sales, and there are all these nonprofit galleries and these independently run art spaces all over the city that afford students and emerging artists a chance to have a voice, something else happens. So it's like an expanded studio practice. I think SAIC could be more connected. I think that there is also, SAIC has a really large network. But the University of Chicago is, so we are the University of Chicago, and the Arts and Public Life Initiative is part of the Office of the Provost and the Office of the Provost at the University of Chicago. So we are completely 100% connected to the university. And as you know, Theaster Gates is the Director of Arts and Public Life. And this whole program was envisioned by him. And he set the parameters in which it should operate, and we move forward from there. So we have interns from the university that work here. We have students come by for talks and performances. So it's completely connected. It's on the other side of Washington Park, which is, for some hard to fathom because we are outside of the main campus, but yeah, we're 100% university. Yeah, I guess I don't know enough about the Art Institute's outreach to answer that properly. I think the University of Chicago is doing something that is kind of unprecedented. You know, I don't know where in Chicago another educational institution has partnered with an artist to create an initiative that bridges the gap between the university and the neighboring community. So I guess I don't think that I don't think SAIC is doing anything like that, but I don't think it's out of the question for the school to do something like that. I just think the University of Chicago is on the forefront right now. I got involved in everything, so I would say getting involved is really important. You know, student organizations, I was lucky to have a job on campus in the Office of Exhibition Practices. I was highly involved in that. I would say get to know everybody, go to everything, connect outside of the school. You know, go to the MCA, the Art Institute, come down here and see us. You know, I think it's really important to build the relationships outside of your role as a student. I think it's important to take yourself seriously so that others take you seriously. And it's be determined, diligent, respectful, open, take risks, because it's probably one of the only times you'll be able to do that. Read everything, you know, just take the time, I guess, to let things happen.